great Grey Swan Guild debate. We have 2 team captains, 6 competitors, 3 debates that we're going to cover today. And as much as we're going to declare a winner, I think we'll all be winners by the experience. Hopefully we'll have a little bit of education, a little bit of entertainment, and hopefully some illumination about the future. Just as a preface for all of what's happening here, depending on what part of the world you're coming into this debate, we're about 7 to 10 months into this pandemic. And so I think there are different questions being asked. There are different longer term questions about being asked. What we've surfaced today, we started with 12 debate topics that came out from our Wave 1 research. We went to our team captains today. They, in their wisdom, decided to work on these 3 topics today. And so we're going to go through an hour's worth of exciting back and forth where, unlike some other debates that might be going on in the world right now, we really do think that critical thinking people could argue on either one of these debates. And the interesting thing for you, the audience, you get to chime in on who you think actually won these debates as well. So that'll be interesting as well. I'd like to just mention that this is put on by the Grey Swan Guild and the Global League of Sensemakers. And essentially our mission is to make sense of the manageable, unmanageable, and unimaginable. So I think that's a mission, and certainly over the last 6 or 7 months, we've applied a lot of thought about pandemics and what they mean for our businesses, our culture, our society, and our lives. So I'll introduce our team captains in a minute, but I will just preamble the debate and then take us off slide presentation. Andrea and Greg will be captaining both Team Magenta and Team Gold. We have Sylvia and Jeannette having a debate about shopping, retail, and commerce. We have Jonathan and Rob debating data and surveillance. And we have Ralph and Jeff debating arts, entertainment, and sporting events. I will take us off the big screen so we can actually see the people that might be debating here. Yeah. Stop share, and there we go. So with no further ado, I'd like to introduce Team Magenta captain, Andrea Cates. She is managing director of Futureproofing Next. She is the captain of Team Magenta, and she is a lifelong innovator, transformer, and person that has hung around startups, learned a lot, and applied what she knows to corporate land. Welcome, Andrea, into the forum.
Thank you, and go Team Magenta. I'd like to introduce my 3 team members, Sylvia Gallusser, who is going to talk about retail, shopping, and commerce. She's an inquirer of our future, and what's important is to be able to win this is to know what's ahead, to see what's happening today. She is the expert in all of that. She looks at the future of work, lifelong learning, transformation and mobility in retail. She's worked with Accenture, Business France, French Tech Hub, Big Bang Factory, and she is an awesome global debater. So welcome, Sylvia. Woo! I'd like to now introduce Jonathan Hoffberg, who is an expert in all things surveillance and wearing the magenta. Thank you, team member Jonathan. He is a leading product and design professional in sales enablement, and he works right now as co-founder and vice president of product and design for Proverity. And if I pronounce that, say it one more time.
Proverity.
And has background with Ford Motor Company and GE in looking globally at surveillance internationally. And so welcome, Jonathan Hoffberg.
Thank you.
Ralph,
great to be
woo!
here.
Ralph Guggenheim, co-founder and VP Pixar Animation. And my favorite thing about Ralph is, and I usually sing the song, I've got a friend in Ralph. He was the producer of Toy Story and also executive producer with Electronic Arts. Right now, he's CEO of Alligator Planet. And what I think is exciting about this is when we're looking at live events, he wrote the book. Awesome Team Magenta member, Ralph Guggenheim, welcome to the debate.
All right, with no further ado, I want to welcome Greg Satell from the City of Brotherly Love. Philadelphia has been known to have some pugilists in their time, and so I expect nothing less from Team Gold today. You're captaining Team Gold, Greg. You are an international author, speaker extraordinaire. You've at least had 2 books that I'm aware of on leading movements. I guess your movement today is Team Gold, and as well about mapping innovation. And you are leading Team Gold today, so take it away, Greg. Oh, and you're muted.
I think that's Team Gold Standard is what you meant to say. You're the gold. I don't know what this magenta thing is. To be honest, Andrea and I were from the same hometown, but I think she got a little crazy out there in Silicon Valley, lost her roots. I don't know what magenta is. It sounds like something, you know, you take out of a computer printer or something, but sounds a little crazy to me. So the Team Gold Standard, first up, we are going to have Jeannette Hanna, who's the chief strategist at Trajectory, which is a brand consultancy where she helps companies build connections and collaborations with the communities in which they do business. She was raised in Manhattan, just up the street from Philadelphia, but she's now based in Toronto. She's the author of Iconica, a field guide to Canada's brandscape, and also host of the podcast Ikonicast. Next, we have Rob Thierry, who is a technology expert and CEO of Ironstone Advisory, where he focuses on helping the finance and insurance community think differently with technology. He is a big Toronto Raptors fan who cries and drowns his sorrows with raspberry sherbet every time his team loses to the Sixers. And finally, our last pugilist, we have Jeff Grimshaw, who hails from the mean streets of Old City in Philadelphia. He's the author of 2 books, Leadership Without Excuses and 5 Frequencies. And as a partner at MG Strategies, he helps senior leaders on 6 continents turn culture into a competitive advantage. And that's the winning team right there.
Well, I want to pay good credence to all of our panelists today for their wardrobe choices. I think it's a medley of gold. I think based on my screen, you're at least going somewhat on team or counter team, depending on, I think, Jeannette, you might be being an infiltrator here, perhaps, but we'll see. Let's get right into it. I'll just talk about format, and then we'll get straight into our first debate. Here's how it will run. We will have a vote ahead of time. We'll pop up the first poll in 1 minute. For the first debate. We'll have 2 combatants, so we're going to have 3 debates where each one of the team members, Team Magenta and Gold, will have a person debate each one of those. We will have the first person go for 4 minutes, the next person go for 4 minutes as their opening argument. We'll have a 90-second rebuttal for both people and a 60-second summary. And subsequently, we'll have team captains provide either a rah-rah, some perspective, or some last-minute thoughts before we reopen up the vote and see if you've changed your opinion at all through the 10 minutes that you've spent with us. So we want to move straight into debate land. I know you're waiting to get the fire hose of insight. Andrea, can we pop up the first debate about shopping? So in the, I guess we are going to be having Magenta go first on this one. And Sylvia will be arguing, we will love ourselves for shopping local and supporting local economies. And Jeannette will be talking about and supporting re-embracing mass-produced trusted brands in commerce. And both of these precipitated by the pandemic. So there'll probably be some pandemic perspective. So audience, if you can choose which one of these positions, and I know you can abstain if you want, but that makes it less interesting. If you could choose those now, that'd be great. And panelists and hosts cannot vote, just so there's no ballot stuffing. And Andrea, when you think you've got sufficient responses coming in, let's see where we are from a pulse check.
Let's give it 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, end.
And do we see, I don't see, oh, here we go. So you have a, Jeannette, you can either look at it as cup half full or half empty. 85% of us, it appears, looks to be on the local side of the fence in Team Magenta's point of view. 15% are in the position of re-embracing mass-produced and trusted brands. We're about to get into the debate. Sylvia, do you want to enter into the ring?
Sure.
You have 4 minutes to make your argument. Go ahead now.
All right. Hi, nice to meet you. So my name is Sylvia, or Cynthia, or Sylvie. Actually, it depends on the day, and it depends on my barista. Do you know that song?
Sometimes you wanna go where everybody knows your name.
Well, there's a part of us which is just like a Cheers character who likes to have their drinks fixed where everybody knows their names. So first of all, because we are social animals. Sure, I won't contest that sometimes we seek the comfort of the good brands, Nutella, Heinz ketchup, and volumes of toilet paper that our local business is clearly not equipped to provide. I'll give you that one. But let's rise up one step up, Maslow's pyramid of needs, from physiological and safety to belonging. So COVID reminded us that we remain social creatures. We realized we crave in-person interaction. We missed our family, we missed our colleagues, our gym, our hairdresser, our artisan bakery. And it takes a village to raise a child. The crisis has proven it over and over. Because no, we don't want a giant platform where all students attend the same class with a robotic teacher or standardized worksheets. We want for our children a personalized school with a human eye, learning pods, virtual play dates. One question, haven't your kids told you how much they love their breakout rooms? They definitely don't get work done, but they hang out with their peers. Well, we love buying local for the same reasons. We want interaction, we want the sharing, and we want the personalized relationship. According to Accenture, actually, 56% consumers have been shopping in neighborhood stores, and 80% of them plan to continue. So we want to feel we matter and that everybody knows our name when we shop. Second, we are also animals of habits. We find reassurance in the realm of rituals, and for a while, our habits were the Walmart store next to the office, the Burger King takeout on the way back home, or the Starbucks detour before a meeting. But COVID has disrupted our routine. It has opening us to new possibilities. We have discovered that we like running down to the local grocery store, sharing survival tips, recipes, or the latest deals with our neighbor. During COVID, we were limited in our choices. Supply chain disruption, no more hot lunch programs at home, at school, or at the office, safety concerns towards packaged foods, budget reduction. So this has pushed us to test new, more local-friendly options. And because our horizon narrowed, we adopted new healthier habits, less driving, more cooking at home, more sharing with our close ones. Actually, according to Nextdoor, it should last. 72% believe they will frequent local businesses more often after the crisis. And local restaurants, for example, in California, were good at opening their terrace to accommodate customers. In many US cities, the government really encouraged local buying and helped our local businesses survive. So it takes a city to support local shopping. Finally, 3, COVID has reminded us that we are moral animals. Our buying choices are not about personal economic power, but a solidarity choice. According to SNBC, 2/3 of people tipped more during the pandemic. Consumers have used this live post to reflect on their own consumption. According to Accenture again, consumers' behavior has changed and will stick post-pandemic. 2/3 consumers have limited food waste, are making more sustainable and ethical purchase, and 90% are likely to continue. So I won't deny a part of us is striving to go back to our old habits, but a more profound part of us has been awakened for good. It takes a pandemic to revive our ethical mind.
Excellent, Sylvia. Not only well supported, but exactly on the 4-minute button, which we always love to see from our panelists. Jeannette, we will move quickly to your side of the position about mass-produced brands. You have your 4 minutes. Please go.
Thanks all, and I love the sentiment, Sylvia, and I wish that we were all in that place, but I was also a little bit late getting to the our session earlier because I got a text from FedEx that they're going to deliver my new fire pit from Amazon in the next hour, and I just had to make sure my neighbors were going to take the package for me because it's big. So will we embrace mass-produced trusted big brands because of the pandemic? Yeah, and the numbers are really indisputable. So I just want to put some facts on the table first. There's no argument of the dramatic rise of online shopping, and that's not abating at all. And I also looked at Accenture's numbers, and certainly the vast majority of consumers who already were purchasing online, they're going to continue doing that. What's really interesting is the huge increase in people who were either new to online shopping at all or low frequency, and that's increased by 169%. So when you talk about we're creatures of habit, we are, and we've had 7 months of new kinds of habits to learn. And one of the things that, I'm looking both across the US and Canada, the conference board here also talks about way of shopping ranked as #1 change from the pandemic. So that's 87% of the people that they talk to, and the types of products they're purchasing, that was 70%. So we know from statistics that the numbers have changed dramatically, and that's across all categories: medicine, groceries, household supplies, but even the kind of stuff that we would normally buy locally, like jewelry or apparel or makeup or skincare. All those kinds of things have jacked up dramatically over the last little while. First of all, not only is that change happening, and it's been consistent long enough that we're going to be a year in terms of changing habits, probably. Online shopping's been a godsend to so many people. If you're working from home, you're trying to homeschool your kids, you're running errands for aging parents. So online shopping is safe, it's easy, it's convenient. There's an app for that. Whatever you want, there's an app for it. So even groceries and liquor. We've also lost the joy of shopping. It's not fun anymore. You walk into your local bakery and everybody's masked. There are big plexiglass things in front of you. There's no time to kibitz or talk to your neighbors, any of that. And the saddest part, this stat actually I found very discouraging, but it's telling and goes to what we would like to believe and what we really do are not always aligned. So as much as we all love the idea of supporting local businesses, only 40% of consumers feel more connected to family, friends, neighbors in the community on average. That's in North America. So that means 60% of us do not feel that way. And interesting, the global average is 54%. So we're way behind a lot of the rest of the world. And the last piece that I think you have to take into account is for people who are out of work, or they're in precarious work situations, or they've lost a lot of money, shopping online can be cheaper. I can look everywhere to get the best bargains and have them sent to my home. So the beneficiary of this is big trusted brands where I'm going to get the best price, the best value, and the most convenience.
Wonderfully, both well supported. Sylvia, you now have 90 seconds to debate, dispute, or do anything with what Jeannette has just said.
Thank you, Jeannette. I really appreciate the argumentation. You really focus on the online, and I want also to underline that I'm not opposing local to online. Actually, a lot of local shops have been doing online. During the crisis, local businesses have actually really changed their marketing, their partnerships, their pricing, their collaborating, their advertising. So that was also a very interesting period for local businesses. And local businesses are actually saying for 55 of them that they feel positive about the future. And I hope it's not just wishful thinking, like this is also how business owners themselves feel about the future, and I think we shouldn't disappoint them in the coming months. So I wanted to underline also, you told, I think at the beginning, that you were receiving a FedEx package, and that's your neighbor was receiving it. So I think also even through online interactions, it creates interaction with your neighbor. And maybe one last thing, I think what we're looking for is not just volume, but also variety. And sometimes online, when I checked on Amazon, I don't find everything I want. Actually, big brands have been reducing the SKU, the number of different, you've seen the same report, I'm sure, the same reports than me, they are like reducing the variety of product they are selling. So that's why sometimes there's nothing as good as going into your local shop to complete what you can buy online.
Wonderful, Sylvia. Jeannette, you have 90 seconds to respond back.
Sure, lots of little stores have had to go online. What they often lack is the convenience. Frankly, you know, if I'm an Amazon Prime customer and while you were doing your talk, I could have ordered all my favorite books for this week. So with one click of the button, that is a big barrier for a lot of other shops. And yes, I love all sorts of custom, personalized, local things. Things that are artisan and all that, I can get them on Etsy too, and I can search the world for those. So as much as I, you know, there's again what we want to espouse and the actual experience of walking down the street. And there are fewer local stores too, unfortunately. So my choice is limited, and my ability and the experience is not what I would hope it to be, even online with local stores. So that's one of the challenges. I hope that we sort all that out, but the reality is that we are establishing new kinds of habits, and people are exploring far and wide in terms of places they can serve their needs. And it's not always down the street by far.
Wonderful. And Sylvia, you now have your 60-second wrap-up closing argument. Please go ahead.
Okay, so yeah, for sure, people without choice, I of course will continue buying the cheapest option, and it's often by the larger brands. I agree on this. However, most of the people who have the choice are really shifting their shopping behaviors towards more local shopping, more conscious buying, and more healthy eating. During the pandemic, people have been exposed to new options. They try new local experiences, and they got really positive feedback. So this was a trend, and I think COVID has reinforced pre-existing messages toward more conscious buying. And even though we are fighting a pandemic altogether, I think people still crave the authentic social bonding experience that local businesses can offer much better, even if large brands are now trying to catch up in that area.
Wonderful. And Jeannette, the same closing argument, please.
Sure. I've actually been doing some interviews in the last 2 weeks with retailers across North America for another project. And one of the biggest barriers for small businesses who have gone online is that they don't have the infrastructure to support things like returns and the kind of things that shoppers really expect. And so that's become a big problem. So, and you've got 40% of consumers now have reduced their spending just because of economics. And they need to know that if they buy shoes or something that they wouldn't normally buy online, that the ease of sending it back, getting their money back, all of those things, and the value they're getting is going to be, you know, that's going to be a great experience. I think the big brands are also looking, a lot of them, to be more socially responsible and all of that, you know, look at their supply chains. So it makes it a more, you know, the moral choice there becomes, you know, it helps assuage some of that.
Wonderful. What a great way to get started here. I'm going to pivot over to Team Magenta captain to provide her summary comments as well as Greg,
are we going to vote first?
Nope. We're going straight to you and then doing the vote.
Okay. Well, I'm going to argue in favor of the race that people are having. I mean, clearly to me, when our longing and our need for what we really want is there and strong, which it is for people to be local, we start realizing that we have a responsibility to our neighbors. It will not take long for platforms to catch up. You know, I used to run a SaaS company, and every time there was a longing, we call it a latent need, there's a software piece that comes right in the middle to solve that. And so the problem right now is a software and platform problem, which we're seeing increasingly, 80% faster and faster. The local vendors are going to be able to do that last mile. Love will reach the longing with technology, and it's just a matter of time.
Okay, Greg, your summary conclusions?
Well, Andrea, and I say this more in sorrow than in anger, but that was a pretty lax effort there. One thing I've learned during this pandemic is how much the local guys have been ripping me off. Because once I started buying stuff online, I got a new puppy, tons of puppy stuff to buy. Once you start buying it online, that you see how much that local pet store has been ripping you off. Same thing for bikes. And guess what? Because I'm not spending time going to the bike shop or going to the puppy store or doing any of those things, I'm spending much more time riding my bike and hanging out with my puppy. And let's face it, Andrea, isn't half the reason you live across the country because you don't want me coming to your house?
Fair comment by Greg, getting personal as well. Wonderful. Andrea, can we do the good service of popping up the vote and seeing, let's just root ourselves again. 85% of people were in support of local, 15 mass brands. Let's vote again. If you may, audience, please. And Rob, hopefully you'll be getting in the horse's gate, ready to get going on your argument shortly. And we have seen a bit of a switch. It's interesting how these are red and blue state kind of colors here. This is not any allusion to the American political process right now, but 64% in support of local, 36 in support of mass. So although Magenta does have the majority of vote, their vote swang back to mass produced. So I am declaring Team Gold the winner of round one. Both well supported. Thank you very much, speakers. Your stats and the way you supported them were brilliant. And we'll hopefully have a chance to debrief. But we're going to move straight to debate number 2. And this is going to be a debate between Rob and Jonathan. Rob from Team Gold will go first. And if we could pop up the poll on this one, Andrea. This is about data and surveillance. Team Magenta or Team Gold, which is supported by Rob. It is going to be easier for us to control what companies can do with their data. And Team Magenta will support the point of view, it will be easier for companies and organizations to track us. So one is empowerment, which is Team Gold, and one is our dystopic version of the future, I suppose, in terms of just people being able to know what we do all the time. So those are the two different debates. If the audience can vote in terms of how they see what the pandemic has done to our ability to either track or to not be tracked. All right, we have the results in. So 81% of people are in the camp of Magenta, which says it's going to make us more easy to track. 19% of people say, nope, we're empowered and we actually have some control, more control over this now than pre-pandemic. Rob, you have 4 minutes to support your argument. Please do go.
Hi, I'm Rob Tyree. Thank you for listening to me. I titled this item, Privacy is Dead. We killed it, but we can resurrect it. In 1995, I was running a consultancy in Ottawa, Canada. I was working for the version of the NSA of Canada called CSE. I had an internet unit in my company, and we were asked to do something special. We were asked by the people at CSE to set up, it was basically a security briefing, but when we got there, they asked us quite clearly in 1995, how can we tap the internet? Now, I was working with 5 people at that point in time. 2 of them were Americans that had moved to Canada earlier, or their parents had moved to Canada. And we were we were there for a security briefing, but we knew that the game had changed. The internet was there. It's 1995. My first internet email address was some numbers. I didn't even know I was on the internet. This is not a new thing. Surveillance is not a new thing. What's gone on for 25 years is a constant fight back. We were there while we were briefing our client at the time, telling them, well, that's going to be really hard unless you can gain control of all of the ISPs. And they wrote notes. And then we went back to the shop and talked about open software, building our own firewalls, and securing our location, because privacy, like all technology, is a neutral thing. You can use it for good, you can use it for evil. You can hide yourself in the cloud and participate in crime, in terrorism, but you can also use privacy to protect new ideas, to go against the grain, to not hurt anybody, but to create new things in the comfort and hope of your own home. To me, privacy is not a separate thing from life. It's not a separate thing from liberty. Privacy, I think, is freedom. And surveillance is an enemy to freedom. So we have to attain privacy. And what I want to convince you guys of is that privacy is available. However, surveillance is scary. We've heard terrible things in the last couple of years. We've heard about elections being altered and influenced. We've heard about data breaches where we made promises or gave our information to government organizations or corporations with an expectation of privacy, and we were let down. It had weak technology. It forced us to do openness where we didn't need openness, but it occurred. And we can see that governments and big corporations, I'm going to call them the bigs. The bigs are looking to gain that information from us all the time, every day, to gain not only profit, but also power. In the commercial world, it's shocking when you hear about some father in the Midwest who is online and gets an offer for pregnancy clothing and different medications and tests, and the only woman in his household is his teenage daughter. This is shocking. We were unaware. And then the governments, 2 minutes. Sorry. So what we've done in response is, the pandemic, there's been a rush to move to online ways of securing things. There's been a growth in WhatsApp, in Signal, to the tune of doubling in 1 year. The trend on end-to-end encryption is super high, and it's available to everyone today. It's easy, it's simple to secure yourself with these new tools, and that's a push that we have now. So I invite you to see how simple this is and use these tools that have been opened up to us to use every day.
Thank you, Rob, for supporting your side of the argument. Jonathan, supporting the other side of the argument that, nope, we are moving toward a surveillance society based on what's happened through the pandemic. You have your 4 minutes. Please go.
Thanks, Sean. And Rob, this is a tour de force of the history of surveillance over the last 25 years. Thanks for laying that valuable foundation. And I think you made a great point that actually there's a multiplicity of surveillance techniques and actors, across the government and corporate realms that are eager to learn everything that they can about us, or to at least be able to access all of this information in order to maximize profit, maximize power over the population, and various other goals that have been explored in other conversations. beyond the scope of this one. But let me just draw your attention to three trends that I'm seeing that are really accelerating during the pandemic. First, the radical adoption of remote work, and along with that, teleconferencing. This trend, which offers attractive commute options for workers and at-risk travelers of all stripes, is really a devil's bargain. For example, Zoom, a key driver of this trend, reported 300 million daily participants in April and a similar number in May. That's the equivalent of every single man, woman, and child in the US Zooming every day, where they share the inside of their homes, their family, their friends, their lovers and pets, the circumstances of their finances and health, mood, taste, and so forth, with their coworkers and anyone authorized to attend or technically capable of hacking their way into the conversation, right? Now, meanwhile, with Zoom's recent acquisition of Keybase, they'll be offering end-to-end encryption for paying subscribers, a tool that Rob pointed out earlier is available to people who understand and know how to employ it. However, Keybase is not going to be available for the free service. You'll have to pay for that. And this really underscores to me the point that privacy, which was once something of a right, is increasingly becoming a privilege, and one that comes at a price. It should also be noted that Zoom, like your early experience in your ISP, Rob, is working closely with authorities, specifically the FBI, to implement their encryption program, clearly implying that the N-bit encryption that they're going to offer to their paying customers won't be an obstacle to the FBI should they be interested in monitoring a paid call on Zoom. Digital contact tracing presents another clear threat to privacy. By aggregating the physical breadcrumb trails of all known users in a community, we can identify retrospectively where infected patients have come into contact with others. But along with that knowledge can come insights that infringe on our privacy. Were you somewhere you weren't supposed to be? Or were you not somewhere you were supposed to be, with someone else or without them? Thirdly, the pandemic has virtually eradicated cash in favor of electronic, frictionless payment. Amazon is rolling out a biometric authentication mechanism for paying in their stores that could quickly become a standard. Along with this innovation comes a record of everywhere that human, in this case, they're using palm authentication. So everywhere that palm is gone, and that data will be in the hands of one of the most powerful companies in the world. These scenarios were foreseen by some of the great dystopian authors of our time, most notably George Orwell. Perhaps 1984 has come late, but there's little question that it has arrived.
Knew you had a zinger there at the end, so I gave you the extra few seconds there, Team Magenta. So, Rob, you have 90 seconds to respond back to what you've heard.
Thank you, Jonathan, for underlining the arguments. We're more in line than we think. It's a question of timing. 1984 from Orwell was a guidebook. It was an indication, was a warning. Again, long time to satisfy things and to build an industry underneath it. In Zoom, in the case of Zoom bombing, the adjustments were rapid. We saw the market in place. We saw the risk level attained, and now we can set the defaults properly to defend ourselves in months. This acceleration really has been on the side of enablement of privacy. Right now, it's not just technology. We have to ask for our rights. You said that privacy was a right. It's not a right in the US. It's not a right in Canada. It's part of the UN Charter of Rights. It's part of the Article 3 of the India Charter of Rights. What we need are the laws to protect ourselves. It's not a question of technology. It's laws. When someone does something wrong with your commerce records, we need a way of dealing with that. That's laws. And those are being challenged as well in an accelerated fashion because it's in front of us every day.
Nice.
Please, Jonathan, please respond back, Jonathan.
Sure. the question of right to privacy as a legal right is certainly a conversation that could take up the rest of the day, if not, a book or two. But in the United States, we have the Fourth Amendment, which guarantees our citizens the right to unreasonable search and seizure. And certainly, we are offering all kinds of information that previously was only available during a search in this very seemingly innocent new form of communication, the Zoom call. So I would contend that actually, the playing field is really changing, and there are threats to our Fourth Amendment rights that are creeping into our daily life as a result of the pandemic.
Wonderful. Rob, you have 60 seconds for your final closing argument.
The tools are there. There's a great book called Little Brother, which is the update to 1984. Jonathan, you should read it. It's a textbook that has been adopted by freedom fighters everywhere. It's also on the curriculum at West Point now, which means it is technology, it's neutral, but it's a guidebook, step by step, how to protect yourself, published 6 years ago. And the weapons are here for us to be safe. And we're using them every day. The trends are here. It's being accelerated now by the pandemic. We're ready to go. See me on Signal. If you find me on Signal, I'm there to communicate with you.
Good first use of prop, our first declared use of prop in the debate. Well done, Rob. Jonathan, you have 60 seconds.
I have a book that's just out of reach called Click Here to Kill Everybody, which is a perfect counter prop to your prop. I'll bring it next time. But, just in closing, I'd like to say that the biometric techniques for authentication, I think are, another one of the key threats to privacy, and, certainly more recent and more timely relative to the long-standing erosion of privacy that we've seen with the internet. Biometric techniques are going to be the hallmark of frictionless transactions in the pandemic and beyond. And along with unprecedented security, they also will pinpoint beyond a shadow of a doubt where we are and what we're doing, anywhere, anytime. And this data gives anyone who possesses it leverage over all of our lives.
Wonderful. Greg, I'm going to pivot to you in terms of some summary captain thoughts for the team gold in Rob's position. Oh, muted once again.
I'm muted.
Andrea, as you well know, I'm a man who really values his privacy because, let's face it, I get up to some pretty disgusting stuff. So I am very comforted that Rob so clearly won that debate, because we have many more tools. And Jonathan, with all due respect, I don't really know what you're talking about. I mean, end-to-end encryption, you can get it right on WhatsApp. It's really easy to get from just off-the-shelf apps. You have GDPR in Europe, and if the recent report out of Congress is any indication, we're going to have a lot more privacy tools. So thank you, Rob, for making me feel better.
Andrea?
Yes, well, I'll start with my first prop, which is clarity on the fact that it is a race between the devil and the priest. And let's just be honest, Greg, there's no way that the priest is going to win. I mean, pick up your mobile phone right now and you tell me that I couldn't in 5 seconds figure out your password. We tried this with the head of cybersecurity, both in the US and China. And guess what? It took us 8 minutes to crack the code and we weren't even hacking. So let's just be honest. The devil's going to win. It's just a matter of time. Second, no amount of GDPR finger wagging is going to keep people honest. Sorry, regulations and law, forget it. They're late. They've been late to banking. They've been late in healthcare. Look at HIPAA, look at banks. I mean, we're just not honest. And so we're going to lose. They've got our data. You say the word Google in front of my phone, I promise you, it knows what I'm saying. It's going to send me stuff to shop for. That's the end of the argument. I wish it were true. Greg, Sorry about this. You lost. You love human nature. It's naive.
Whoa, I thought you said the
All
devil
right.
won. That means
We have no time for a Philadelphia side alley fight here. Andrea, can you pop up the poll? And just to root everybody once again, the position of surveillance had 81% to 19% on the other side in the pre-poll. We're looking to see what the delta is now. Audience, please weigh in. And the results are 91% for magenta and 9% for gold. So we do have a winner in magenta. We have, this is actually now a deciding match. It always is great when you enter into a third debate here and it actually comes down to all the marbles. So well supported, Jonathan, Rob. Appreciate that. We're going to move quickly to our third debate. There has been a question about questions in the chat. If you do have questions, we will respond back to them after this debate. We're trying to jam as much insight into an hour as we possibly can. We're going to pivot to our third debate. And Andrea, if you could pop up the survey in advance. We're going to have Ralph followed by Jeff support different positions here. Ralph on Team Magenta. He'll be supporting the position that traditional sports and concerts and public events, big public events, are a thing of the past. And Jeff will be supporting Team Gold. People will flock back to large gatherings because we're socially hardwired to. So please, if you could chime in, audience, on this question, and then we will get started with the debate, starting with Ralph momentarily. All right. Wow, a bit of a surprise here. Wow, 88% Team Gold. You actually have a lead, but that also means that you have to protect that lead, Jeff. So just making you clear on that. Ralph, you have 4 minutes.
Okay, well, thanks for having me here today. You know, the other day I went down to the supermarket with my mask on, and I'm shopping, and all of a sudden the mask starts itching my nose a bit, and I sneeze. I've never seen the produce section of a supermarket clear out quite so fast as when that happened. People are still nervous, anxious, and afraid of the COVID virus and its ability to be transmitted. So office building work, dead. Commuting, a thing of the past. Cities emptying out because people are moving to other places where they can work remotely. And now the next victim in all this, live events. In early August, almost 500,000 motorcycle fans converged from Sturgis, South Dakota for a 10-day celebration. Few of them wore facial masks. Few of them practiced social distancing. And a month later, guess what we found? The event was a super spreader with thousands of people sickened across the nation as they went back to their homes, leading them to brand Sturgis as a super spreader event. This past week, the CDC announced that COVID is spread through airborne contact. No surprise. Stadiums and arenas and concert venues are incubators for coronavirus. Care for a dose of virus with your ticket? You're welcome to it. Regal Cinemas, the second largest theater chain in the country, opened and then rapidly closed their theaters just this past week because they don't see any end in sight for large gatherings at movie theaters. Wall Street Journal in May said, in the short term, concertgoers will encounter smaller theater shows with reduced audiences to enable social distancing. Well, that's great, but until you have 95% immunization and you get herd immunity, it's going to take years to achieve. People have lost confidence in being socially gathered. They may continue to work in small groups. They may continue to get together with their families, but don't expect any large gatherings. That is over. Graham McCone, president of music at Momentum Worldwide, who produces sponsored concert events, says safety precautions will definitely become the new normal that we haven't seen before. Well, that's all very positive, except that the virus spreads best in proximity, especially when people are singing, yelling, cheering, screaming. All that propels the aerosol droplets well beyond the 3 feet that the CDC is talking about. So if you're at a stadium, if you're at a concert, if you're even at a movie theater, and like my experience at the supermarket, one person sneezes, it's like yelling fire in a crowded theater. It's going to have consequences. So While short-term contact may limit exposure, lengthy contact, such as at a 2-hour concert or a sports game or a rally, just makes matters worse. And worse still, if the aerosols don't get you, think about the fomites that are dropped on the handrails that you used as you walked into the theater or walked into the stadium. Think about going to the concession stand and being handed a hamburger by someone who you don't know, and you don't know how they've been tested, but they have a job that they have to keep. And high fives at sporting events, they're a thing of the past. So if this isn't bad enough, people who are asymptomatic feel healthy and they go to an event where they unknowingly spread the virus. So they feel great, they go to a football game, guess what? They become super spreaders. So imagine going to some large venue in the future. Your temperature is taken at the door, overall attendance is reduced, seats are removed, less people are allowed in, line entry is going to be staggered. Guess what? This is a crash for the business model of anybody in the live entertainment business. So concessions, so seats will be reduced, lower revenues, higher costs of PPE, etc. Backstage pass, it's a thing of the past. So add to that the potential liability for the concert promoters and you get the picture. So grab your VR headsets and prepare to go out to that concert and ball game or a theater, because that is the new normal.
Wow, eloquently said. I am expecting similar eloquence from Jeff. You have 4 minutes to support your position that we are, well, you'll support whatever position you support, Jeff. Go ahead.
Thanks, Sean. Thanks, Ralph. If history is any guide, post-COVID, people are going to flock back to sporting events and concerts and theater. And why should history be our guide? Well, if you take a look at, for example, just live theater, the history of live theater and the history of pandemics has some interesting intersections. So if you go back to where live theater originated in Athens in about 400, 500 BC, live theater was still in its infancy. It's like 100 years old or so when the first recorded pandemic came along that changed the course of the Peloponnesian War. It was probably typhoid fever. We don't know for sure, but that combined with the Spartans killed 2/3 of Athenians, and yet live theater survived. So it's got some resilience, right? Now let's fast forward to the high and late Middle Ages. And in live theater, there were some important developments at that time. That's where in live theater, comedy originated. It's the first community theaters. It was the first time that plays went from being religious to secular. It was the first time there were theater societies. And so all of that set the stage, forgive the pun, for the era that came after it, the Elizabethan era and Shakespeare. But if you go back to that period before, this important period in theater of the high and late Middle Ages, smack dab in the middle of that, you've got the Black Death. You've got the plague in 1350 that kills 1/3 of the population. When that eases up, the smell of dead bodies still fills the air, but live theater picks up where it left off. So now I'll bring you an example that's closer to home, or at least my home. My neighbor across the street has been for many decades on the board of the Walnut Street Theater. The Walnut Street Theater was originated in 1809, the oldest theater in the United States. And about halfway through its current life, there was the pandemic of 1918, killed millions of people around the world. And in the United States, killed about 700,000 people. And the hardest hit city in the United States was Philadelphia. It was like, killing 12,000 people in just the space of 1 month. And yet, the Walnut Street Theater survived. So, Team Magenta is telling you that Walnut Street Theater is history. I'm telling you that history favors the Walnut Street Theater. And speaking of theaters, there's a place in New York called the Lindy Deli. It's a tourist trap, but back in the day, a lot of Broadway actors used to hang out there and gossip. And one of the things that they discovered in their gossiping was this rule of thumb that says that if a Broadway show survived 100 days, it had passed a threshold of survivability. It was likely to survive for at least 100 more days. If a Broadway show survived for 200 days, it was likely to survive for at least 200 more. And many of you have probably read the works of Nassim Taleb, who wrote The Black Swan, who sort of set the stage for many of us to study gray swans. And you may know that in one of his books, later books after The Black Swan, Anti-Fragile, he talked about something, the Lindy effect, after the Lindy Deli, which is the idea that the older something is, as long as it's not an animal or a plant, the longer it is likely to be around. So we can say that concerts and sporting events are Lindy. They are going to survive all of us.
Wonderful, Jeff. And your response, Ralph, 90 seconds.
Jeff, thanks. You make a lot of great points. And I agree with you. Theater is not dead. Movies, not dead. But all of them are going to be moving into the virtual space. Thank goodness somebody came along, Al Gore or whoever else, and invented the internet back in the early 90s, because without it, this pandemic would have been far, far worse on all of our lives. But in fact, celebrities are already moving into other venues. Travis Scott, a rap star, performed a short concert in the video game Fortnite recently. The experimental pop duo 100 Gex just did a festival in Minecraft. Forget about Coachella, that's over. Tomorrowland around the world is a custom designed and 3D built venue, virtual venue with 8 digital stages guests can virtually walk through. These things are all being reinvented for the internet age. And just like you say about the Peloponnesian War, these great events bring great adaptations along with them. And so we are all going to be changing our behaviors as a result of COVID, and we're going to be finding new ways to act virtually. Theater has gone virtual, movies, we're all sitting at home watching Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, etc. Disney theme parks, meanwhile, are closed. Disney Plus is the great profit generator for them at the moment. So we're going to be virtual for a long time to come, and COVID is the cause of our adaptation.
Jeff, your 90-second response.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to disagree. I think we are finding agreement that things will evolve, but these things are not things of the past. You talked about backstage passes. Let me tell you why I'm wearing this lanyard. This represents the highlight of my summer. My wife and I paid $200 to see Metallica at a drive-in, along with a packed house at this drive-in in the middle of nowhere. While they were broadcasting this concert to 200 other drive-ins across North America. And so it is an adaptation, but part of what made it worth $200 was the communal atmosphere, for the opportunity for me to be a guy in his 50s wearing his black t-shirt, knowing all the lyrics and banging his head with a whole bunch of other people. So the communal element of this is part of what has helped these things survive, and I think would be foolish to think that that is not going to continue.
And Ralph, you have your 60-second closing argument.
Right. Thanks. So, all these great changes are brought about by the results of people's behavior. And behavior is what drives all of this. Everything we're talking about today fundamentally comes down to people's attitudes and responses to the situations that they're in. And as long as someone who sneezes in the produce aisle of the supermarket or goes to a motorcycle rally and comes home sick, these issues are going to be threats to our way of socializing, and we are going to remain skittish about going back to public venues. Sure, small venues in the hermetically sealed car that you're in at a drive-in, no problem. But I was just at a drive-in last week here in San Francisco. It only fits 100 cars. That's not a big venue. That's not a 50,000 seat, 80,000 seat stadium. These are going to be small, socially distant venues for a long time to come.
And Jeff?
Yeah, so just by way of wrap up, let me deliver some great news to everybody, because not only are these things going to survive, but we are going to flock to them. And when we flock to them, we're going to enjoy the hell out of it. And why is that? It's because that in psychology, there's a concept called the hedonic treadmill, and it's about the paradox of the fact that we're constantly seeking pleasure, and then when we get it, we're just on this treadmill where we're going after the next thing. And the only way to get off the hedonic treadmill is to have a hedonic reset. That's according to psychologists. How do you have a hedonic reset? It's when you have a temporary deprivation of hedonic pleasures, so that when you get to enjoy them again, you appreciate them more, and they're actually more joyful. So the good news in all of this is that a COVID silver lining is that when we get to go back to do the things that we haven't been able to do, it's going to be awesome.
Well supported, both of you guys. I'll allow your team captains to chime in on your arguments. And this is big, guys. This is not only for this debate, but whoever wins this wins the entire event. So Andrea, give your best 30-second wrap up here.
So ING Bank spent a whole lot of time trying to figure out how to get people back to the branches, 600 branches all throughout Europe. And after this amazing idea, they found out that how many people came back to the branches, 600 retrofitted, worked with all of the cleanliness that they could. That would be zero. Zero people came back to the branches. Why? Because alternatives are better than the original. And so when there were no alternatives, we thought we were satisfied, Jeff. We really did. We thought that was enough, but the new satisfied is 12.3 million people being able to go on Fortnite and in the comfort of our home and having small, I'm not saying that people don't want communal, but the new communal is digital. Sorry, it's physical and digital. We have this need, but you know what? In the Coliseum days, another amazing prop, by the way, there just wasn't the ability for me to stay home and not be around those lions. I mean, I would have probably preferred that. And so my final thing is, we would love to do this. We don't disagree. I don't disagree with the fact that the human heart wants to have you think you're right. You're wrong. Because the elevator in the Salesforce Tower is not big enough for people to get up and down. And so we will stay home, and 12.5 of us will go to event after event from the comfort of our homes, thank God, enabled by new technology beyond the ancient Coliseum.
Alrighty, well supported. I allowed you to go the extra time because you introduced another prop again, Andrea, so well done. We are creeping over the hour, but my hope is you can stay for your final vote too. Greg, your retort?
Andrea, you can't be serious. It's like you heard nothing Jeff said. And he even introduced psychology, which I appreciate because, as you know, I have a very specific psychology. So as a Philly girl, in Philadelphia, we love our Eagles, right? So I have one question for you. When I'm watching my Eagles at home, who am I going to throw my beer at? Huh? I rest my case.
Wow. Using the Eagles and beer as a concluding argument, an interesting strategy. So before we do, I just want to thank all of the panelists. The amount of preparation and research, and I know you haven't had a lot of time, was incredible on this, and I feel much more informed than I did an hour ago. So, Andrea, if we can pop up the poll that weighs in on who won this entire debate and bragging rights for a year. And please, audience, if you could chime in on this one, that's very important. All right, we have 78 to 22%, still very much in favor of people are going to be flocking back. But Jeff, despite the use of hedonics and the use of theater, and I'm going to now repronounce how I say theater, okay. You had some slippage. So I am awarding not only this debate, but the entire event to Team Magenta. Congratulations. Andrea, take your victory lap with your Wonder Woman outfit and lasso and tiara and whatever else. Thank you, everybody. I'll maybe just allow Andrea and Greg to chime in for 30 seconds on both their team and the event itself and how you think of this germ of an idea we had a few weeks ago.
I'll go second.
I just want to say I'm deeply, deeply wounded. Deeply.
That was like a haiku of summary. Thank you.
I'm just saying rematch, even though we won, it ended in an ellipsis. So I think we need a theme song. I really liked, Sylvia, you're playing music and using a prop. We should have gotten extra points. I'm just saying, Sean. But I think that the level of engagement and the provocative nature of preparing was just as much fun as this unbelievable group of the best people on earth. Awesome teams, Gold, and even more awesome Team Magenta.
And just by way of wrap up, we're going to include this video and a summary both on our Medium and LinkedIn and Facebook channels. We'll likely get around to putting it up on our website as well. I just wanted to introduce a couple of housekeeping things toward the end, and we can disembark from this. We do answer ask these type of questions ongoing. We currently have a weather vane poll that is going on where we ask 10 very tough questions about the pandemic. If you're up to the challenge, it's a bit.ly weather vane thing there. We've just introduced our Medium channel. Anybody that comes on today, just put your name in the chat box in terms of whether you have an interest in authoring an article on our Medium platform. It's probably one of the most undervalued social networks in terms of long form content. And so we've just got 2 articles popped up there now. If you want to join our League of Sense Makers and you like the vibe that you got today, you can certainly join us at one of these forums, and we'll send these all out in summary. And certainly this is what we do as the Global League of Sense Makers, 5 different things, and certainly 25 different ways to get involved in what we're doing. And we are now entering a phase called Wave 2. This week we'll be popping up a page on our website where you too can author 500, 1,000, or 1,500 word articles that will be published. So if you've never been published before, now's your chance. And if you're just bothered about something around the pandemic or inspired to write, here's your chance. We're calling it Catching Our Collective Breath. And to the point that was being made in the last debate, we have given up the handshake during this pandemic. So as we close out most of our meetings in the Grey Swan Guild, we do use the Spock handshake. I'll allow any last thoughts from our panelists, just because you've been so gracious in coming. Any around the horn in terms of your comments?
Great conversation, tons of fun.
Yeah, this was fun. Thanks.
Lots of fun. I want a rematch.
All right, the gauntlet has been thrown, but thank you, everybody. It was great.
Sorry, that was my last comment.
I know, and there was a fact check. I mentioned to Sylvia in private chat. She did bring up the first prop. I think I awarded it to Rob on his book, but the cup was actually, I think, the first prop introduced. So just for the record. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day. Stay safe, stay well, and we'll be seeing you in the future. Bye now.
Fantastic.